I'm a dad, I'm a musician, I'm a rock star, I'm a creative, I'm a coach, and I like to help people get on messy. Most people don't believe they have a choice. And I think that's one of the big things that holds people back the most. I used to be the person that was burning the candle at both ends. I was doing it all for my loved ones, and in the process, neglecting them the most. And I just said, I can't do this anymore. God, I genuinely thought you were going to ask me for a divorce. When I stopped trying to people please and stopped work out why I was doing it for everyone else, and then work out why I'm doing it for me, then the people pleasing actually started paying me. If it was a piece of cake, would it be such a difficult decision?
Andy, who are you?
Wow, what a straight in question. I'm a dad, I'm a musician, I'm a rock star because I believe that when you have that inside you, it never leaves you. I'm a creative, I'm a coach, and I like to help people get on messy, but get messier on the process. That's pretty much who I am. But I'm a dad ultimately because that's the best that's the best job I've ever had in my life. That's my purpose.
See, that feels so different from how I operate. I remember when I started my business and I was like, I will not be defined by being a mompreneur because I was an entrepreneur before. I am a mom, but I'm only a mom to my son, who I love, but I never identify myself as a mom first. Why do you identify yourself as a dad first?
My wife and I went through a big journey to become parents. Being an entrepreneur was easy. Being a dad has been the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Yeah, we went through adoption. Then it starts. My first business, I just got a £10,000 loan, said goodbye to my 9 to 5, said see you later, and just spent the 10 grand as quick as I could. That was easy. Being a dad took me a lot more and actually has probably helped me, well, no, massively helped me as a business owner and an entrepreneur because it's given me that drive to have purpose in not just in being a dad, but actually have purpose in when I'm at work and why I do it.
So, what is your purpose?
My purpose is to positively impact as many people as I can on their journey to help them find their purpose. And that sounds really silly because helping someone else find their purpose probably sounds like, well, hang on a minute, your purpose is to help them find their purpose. It sounds a bit Chuckle Vision, if you're familiar with Chuckle Vision. It's a bit to me, to you. A very, very, very bad, the comedy from the 90s, a kids' TV show, two brothers, and they would grab hold of the ladder and they'd be like, to me, to you, to me, to you. But for me helping other people find their purpose means that they get to get out of their way. They get to get out of the person that they think they are, which is exactly where I used to be. I used to be the person that was burning the candle at both ends. I was doing it all for my loved ones, and in the process, neglecting them the most. So if your purpose is to travel, is to spend more time with your family, to do whatever you want to do in life, that's great. But most people are holding themselves back from what really kind of lights their fire. And for me, one of the biggest things that lights my fire is kind of being around my wife and my daughter. And I spent years trying to do it all for them. I wasn't spending any time with them.
Well, what do you think is holding people back the most?
I'm a bit of a hater of the phrase limiting beliefs because most people don't know what they are. They don't know they have them. I said this to someone the other day, and it was about someone who was in hospital and they had the choice whether they want to try to get better or not. And I just do believe that most people don't believe they have a choice. And I think that's one of the big things that holds people back the most is they don't believe they have a choice. They don't believe they have a choice to show up on social media. Okay, it might feel icky, but you know, there's lots of other ways of showing up on social media. I used to hate DMing people and sending people messages until I realized that actually, am I doing them a disservice by not telling them about what I do? Because what if they're stuck in that moment of, I don't think I have a choice, but I can help them realize that they do have a choice to step into their greatness, step into who they are and live their life as they want to live it. I think most people believe that the barriers that are there, they can't move. And I think so many barriers can be shifted.
At what point did you realize that you had that belief? Like, how do you self-recognize?
My biggest moment and my biggest shift for me, it is the Epiphany Bridge moment, was when I was standing in my photography and video studio, which I'd been running for, at that time, maybe about 13 years. And my wife and I were working together and I just said, I can't do this anymore. I remember standing there looking at her and saying, I can't go on. I felt suicidal. That wasn't, I was struggling with my mental health. That was like, I have no idea why I'm doing this. And it was that moment where we both got a bit upset. We both had a massive hug and she said, oh my God, I genuinely thought you were going to ask me for a divorce, because she thought that was what I meant, but it wasn't. What it meant was my wife was kind of almost, I'm going to say pushed. It's probably not the right word. Was trying to dragged into our business when my daughter was younger and she had bilateral hip dysplasia. She was in plaster cast for 28 weeks just after we adopted her. That meant that my wife had to step away from her job in retail because it was the decision was made that like I could kind of be more flexible. So with all the hospital appointments and stuff, you know, I could move clients, I could move jobs. So she came into the business with me. It was never her purpose. It was never her drive. And the moment I knew that what my wife's purpose was, and I wasn't the most supportive at the start of her purpose, because for me, I felt like she was moving away from working with me as a person, and I took that personally. But actually what happened was my wife loves Zumba, and my wife kind of has this fire in her belly. It was about 2 years after we started the Zumba online. She was doing all the Zumba, doing it where she was going to a village hall and she was paying £10 for a hire of a hall, and 2 people would show up at £5 a go. And I would be like, why are you doing this, in my head, thinking this is what she's doing. She currently has 8 classes a week. She has over 140 women that go through her classes a week now. And that's part of the journey. But there's this 2-year moment. My wife and I, we do loads together. My daughter was, oh, can I go and watch Mummy on Zumba? I was like, yeah, cool. So I wanted to walk the dogs afterwards. So we went with my daughter, and my daughter and I sat at the back, and Kate said, oh, can you take a few videos and stuff? And I saw her smiling on stage, and I went, wow, like I've not seen that smile in her for a long time. And it was at that moment I realized that that was her purpose. And for me, running my own businesses over the years, when I had that moment where I stood there with my wife, I had no idea what my purpose was. I knew I wanted to be a dad. I'd always wanted to be a dad, but the build up of being why I wanted to be a dad, I had no idea until kind of that moment where everything shifted for us. And I went, I can't do this anymore. And that's when I personally started to do the work that nobody sees, the work that nobody gets to see, and the work that nobody gets to experience. And that is the work that I do behind closed doors. And I do that work journaling, with meditation, with, you know, my daily kind of gratitude. And the way I work as a human now isn't just about how I can be the best photographer or videographer or coach or, you know, anything I'm doing in life. It's actually about what moves us forward as a family and what helps us as a family, and ultimately be the best dad I can. Because I know that when my daughter walks through the door at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, if she sees me sat there on the laptop peering over the top like you do, I know for a fact she goes, oh, like I can feel it. She doesn't have to say it, I can feel it. So for me, it was the best shift ever, even if my wife did have to have a little bit of a scare thinking I wanted a divorce. Which I definitely did not, by the way.
I think that if I look back at the people that I know and even myself, and I think about how we just move through life on automation and don't take that time to actually reflect on what is it that I want. I think most of us live for others. I don't know if you think the same, but we're here in the service of others. Maybe it's because we have been raised to not be egotistical. So you're like, okay, well, you have to consider others, you have to be in service of others, which means that we forget about ourselves and what we want and what we need and what we're meant to do. I wonder if for people who are listening, who are thinking, gosh, I actually don't know what I'm here for or who I'm here for or what I'm meant to be doing, what are some reflection points you might give to them so that they can start thinking about it in a way where it doesn't leave them with a gaping hole?
I think sometimes the big thing for me is when you stop searching, because one of the things I quite often do with my one-to-one clients is when they kind of struggle with what their purpose is, I literally get them to get a piece of A4 paper and I just write, who am I, in the middle, and that just says, who am I? And they just do a little spider graph like they would when they were at school. And it's like, who are the people around me? What do I love doing? What do I enjoy doing? Because, you know, when it comes to work, and I say work because for me, work feels like a bad thing. I love what I do. I love working with my clients and I love meeting people, chatting and kind of helping people in their process. But I realized a few years ago that I'm a serial people pleaser. Like I'm genuinely will people please to help everyone. And it's funny because actually I genuinely believe if you love what you do, you'd probably do it for nothing. So the question is, how can you find that gap between? So that's what I quite often do. And I'll just literally put the who am I? And I just literally write stuff. It could be like, you know, I love surfing. I love music. I love it when my daughter makes funny videos and sends me. I literally just before this call, I literally just looked at I've got iMessage on my laptop, but I haven't got it on my phone. My daughter had sent me a video of her singing on her iPad. And I just thought, I don't think I would ever have the confidence when I was younger to just send a friend or like, and it's just the things like, you know, what do people ultimately, what lights your fire? Because I think so many people are going on a website and going, all right, I'll have a look on a job site and see what kind of job I like. And it's like, well, actually, what lights your fire? Because for me, the biggest shift in my life had been when I stopped trying to people please and stopped, you know, trying to work out why I was doing it for everyone else and then work out why I'm doing it for me. Then the people pleasing actually started paying me because I'm helping people on their journey. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think when you just find out what lights you up, and it's like, how do you find it? I think most people know, they're just too afraid to say it. And again, comes back to choice, right? It comes back to a choice of whether you want to do it or not. And I think if you're not sure, go for a walk. Go for a walk in the woods. Go and get outside, because that's the big thing. Everyone's hiding behind these rectangular devices at the moment. And I think it's so easy to go and ask ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, that I do.
No, I'm reflecting back to my first business, and I was in that for about 10 years. It was in hospitality. And I think about, so I had my moment of like, who am I after that? Because during that time, I was busy, I was very successful, I was, taking care of people, I had a team, things were great. But I definitely lost who I was in that. Not in a way where I was negative towards others, but I definitely didn't know what kind of music I liked, because it was always staff music and I enjoyed it. But was it my choice? No. I didn't know when gigs to go to, because I'm like, I don't know, my friends go to gigs, I go along with them. I was always a tag along to anything else. I knew what restaurants I liked because I was in the food business. I knew what restaurants I liked and what food I liked and what was good and what was bad. And that was probably the only thing. But I didn't want to be my business. I didn't want to just be like, oh, I'm a foodie. That's not the identity I want to hold. So I feel like I lost myself. And I think that if I was faced with a question of take a piece of paper and write who you are, I'd be like, well, at that moment, 10, 15 years ago, I probably would have been, I don't know.
There's another step to this that I haven't told you as well, is that quite often what I'll now get people to then go and do is then go back and look at that thing and now cross out everything you hate doing. So they'll write in that, who am I? I'm this, I'm that, I'm the chef, I'm the maitre d', I'm the whatever they are. And it's like, it's not what are you, it's like who am I? And it's more like, and that's the thing, I think, like, you've just hit the nail on the head there, because I think for me it's like most people do actually get to that point where they are the hospitality, or they are the chef, or they are that industry. Ironically, since we've last met, I've actually dropped the word coach. And the reason I've dropped the word coach is because I do so much more than just coaching. I work with people on a one-to-one basis, and we go on a lot of the deeper level than just the surface stuff. But I'm Andy Casey at the end of the day, and I want people to come and work with Andy Casey. So many people are the title, and I don't think you need to be the title.
I agree with that so much. And I really like this exercise of, crossing out of what you dislike. I think that is such a powerful move right there. Like, what are you not? Who are you not for? Kind of thing. I wanted to go down the boundaries route a little bit, because if we think about people pleasing, then we must put up our boundaries. We must learn what we stand for. We must know, obviously, who we are, what we like, what we stand for, and all of that. And it's one thing to know, and it's another thing to actually execute on that knowing. How did you transition from being in the knowledge and then to actually following through with that?
I think the big thing for me has been who I'm surrounding myself with. I learned the hard way because, for example, I don't drink. I very rapidly realized that when you don't drink and you're surrounding with other people who are drinking, you suddenly find yourself triggered. And it's not because I dislike the people I'm around. It's because they're doing something that doesn't particularly excite me. It doesn't serve me. I remember having a moment a few years ago where I was at a friend's birthday party and I'd lost an awful lot of weight. And I've always kind of been the guy who kind of compared himself. I think, being a number one Lenny Kravitz fan, look at Lenny Kravitz's stomach. He's the guy I look up to in music. He's the guy I look up to as a creative. I mean, he's just such a beautiful soul. And I've never had that stomach. It'd be amazing. I know it takes a lot of work. And I remember 2016, 17, I got down to about 80 kilos. I remember at that moment where one of my friends went, oh, you might have done loads of work, maybe you still got a fat gut. And he put his hand on my belly. And I remember thinking, that's not about me. This isn't about me. And this is about his reflection on maybe my journey, or maybe he just thought it would be fun to take the mickey out of the way I looked or whatever. But I actually go back and look at the photo of my wife and I just before that party. I always think, wow, I'd been through a lot then. Don't get me wrong, I struggled a little bit when it came to that, getting down to that low weight, because everyone kept telling me I was skinny and so forth. But what I realized in that kind of whole moment was the people that I surround myself with is really important. And its boundaries for me comes through family boundaries, friendship boundaries, and definitely what we consume is definitely in one of my big boundaries. I've talked about this a lot. I don't switch the news on in the morning. I've probably seen just about every episode of Everybody Loves Raymond in the morning because I've watched them all, not just because I think it's funny, but I think it's something that doesn't create a negativity. It doesn't create low mood. So when my daughter and I and my wife are sat there in the morning, maybe having breakfast, that transitions for the rest of the day. And I think the boundaries sometimes for me are not just like the obvious things, that makes sense.
It really sounds like you're building your world, you're managing your energy, you're very intentional about who you're surrounding yourself with, what you're surrounding yourself with as well. And then it makes it easier to actually follow the way that you want to live. And it's less about putting up boundaries, but more by just building the world around you the way that you want to actually live and be seen and be met. That's how I see it.
And also I feel that when it comes to boundaries, I feel like it's okay to distance yourself from people who potentially cause you negativity. That again, that doesn't mean that you don't like them. It doesn't mean that, if Ivy and I go to the pub and Ivy drinks too many rosés and gets a bit silly, that doesn't mean we're not friends. It just means that if that affects me, maybe that's an environment I shouldn't be around. It doesn't mean that Ivy and I can't meet for coffee and cake. It just means that maybe that's the scenario that maybe triggers me in that moment.
I'm thinking about families. I'm thinking about how difficult it is for some people to celebrate. Is there something you have in terms of wisdom that you can help the listeners with when they're coming up to this period, when they're surrounded by families, whether it is to do with the boundaries or, because you can't really choose your family? That's what I'm thinking. And sometimes there can be tension.
Yeah.
There's something that comes up for you. They're like, this would be a good tip.
Oh, I love this question. I think for me is the people pleasing moment around in Christmas. I think so many people are afraid to say, "Oh yeah, we'll come to yours for Christmas," or "We'll go to someone's for Christmas," because that's what we always do. My wife and daughter and I have had pizza for lunch on Christmas Day a few years ago because we were like, we go to family relatives' houses each year, and it was like, "Do you really want turkey this year?" I love Christmas, honestly. I would celebrate Christmas the day after Halloween. Well, we pretty much do in this country, don't we? Um, Everywhere you go, just doing something for you, the ones that are important to you, is really, really important. And I think, and if that is actually, on Christmas Day, you're single and you actually don't want to go round to your auntie, brothers, siblings can rile each other up. I mean, stay at home and enjoy the TV, go for a walk on the beach or the woods, and one of our biggest family traditions is Christmas Day. We go for a walk on the beach with the dog. Every year we say we're going to make a bacon sandwich. Perhaps this year we definitely make a bacon sandwich and take it with us. I think, yeah, it's allowing yourself to do what makes you happy rather than doing what think everyone else wants, because people can influence us quite a lot, can't they?
I know that I have changed a lot in the last 10 years. I transitioned from people pleasing, I probably still people please, stating what I want. So now I state what I want. I'm not ashamed to say what I want, which meant that my husband and I having a child later than most people, our Christmas became, oh, we're not going to go over to you. We actually want to do Christmas Day as our
Yeah.
solo unit, just the three of us, because that is beautiful too. We can meet, but I want to do a Christmas for ourselves. And I was told that I was being selfish. I was told I was being selfish. I'm like, but I'm allowed to be selfish. I have a own family now. And I want to be with my family and really nurture this core first. I think that ever since that I stated what I want, people take it as being selfish. I'm like, no, just because I want it doesn't mean I must have it. I'm just telling you my desire so that you can know what it is that I want, and I want to know yours as well. And I find it so difficult. So many of the people in my sphere, they don't tell me what they want, and all I want to know is what they want, so then I can adjust what I want to match theirs, because I may have some compromise within me. It's not that I don't have compromise. And I find that the judgment from others on people saying what they want is a hard one to bear. Have you seen anything similar?
Yeah, and you know what's really funny? I've just thought about something. If it was a piece of cake, would it be such a difficult decision, right? So it's like, why do you like that piece of cake? I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a local artisan bakery near me that just has so many amazing, beautiful cakes. You just think, I want them all, but I'll be sick. But then that comes back to the boundary thing, right? If I eat them all and I have them all and I do everything for everyone else, I'm going to feel sick. So why don't you just pick the cake that you really enjoy?
I like that.
What is your favorite cake out of curiosity?
There are not many of them out there. I like a coffee flavored cake. Not a lot of people make good coffee flavored cake. I want it to be punchy coffee, not too sweet, but sweet enough. If you're a baker out there listening, I want a coffee cake. Complete other side story. So I go to New York, the States, and I'm like, oh wow, coffee cake, but it looks plain. And I'm like, but it must have coffee essence in it. That's why. So I buy it and I'm like, darn, this tastes of nothing. And one of the things I hate the most in a cake is a sponge. that doesn't taste of anything. Like this vanilla, like vanilla sponges, they're not for me. I'm like, give me lots of flavor, which is why I like coffee. And I'm eating this. I'm like, where's the coffee? It doesn't taste of coffee. They're like, no, no. It's just a cake you have with coffee. That's what it is. That's a coffee cake. Yeah, there's no essence. There's no flavor of coffee. Anyway, so my favorite cake is a coffee cake. What is your favorite cake?
Right now, I really like anything that's got cherries and chocolate in it. It was like I had a cake the other day. It was like really rich, kind of is it? I can't think what is it. Morello cherries?
Yeah.
Well, that's a tongue twister, isn't it? And I had it with an Americano, so it was with coffee. So, and I think like what you've just said there, it's like when you explain the cake, it's like actually that's exactly how you should think about your Christmas if you're looking to spend time with your loved ones.
That's a really nice way to end this. Andy, what kind of people do you work with and how can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram. I'm no longer the coach. I'm Andy Casey UK. But yeah. So I work with mainly entrepreneurs and parents who are in that moment a bit like I was all those years ago, kind of stuck in that believing that change isn't possible. So yeah.
Why did I say that? Get in touch with Andy Casey. He's absolutely brilliant. Follow him, support him. He's not a coach. He helps you in your life on when he finds your purpose. And thank you for coming here and chatting to me and being so open. It's been a really wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Ivy. You're an absolute superstar. Appreciate you.
You've been listening to The Creative Flight. If you want to tune in for the other episode, please do so. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.